Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today I am here to do a follow-up to a couple of videos I did before on 4K and 4K restoration, and are they ruining or improving old movies? And I used Red Dawn's 4K restoration as an example. Well, today I am here to do a full review of Red Dawn, its 4K release, and I'm going to do it from a filmmaker's perspective. So this is going to be a very different type of video. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. All right, so some of you might have seen I had a couple of big videos. One is 4K restorations are why everybody is basically reviewing 4Ks wrong, and yeah, a couple of others, are 4Ks restorations ruining old films, or are they improving old films? Are they making them better? And I used Red Dawn as an example, and I have it here, and I've watched it a couple of times since then because I wanted to. I'm going to make this kind of like a running thing where I do review some 4Ks, but not like everyone else. I'm going to take a more I'm going to try to take my fan hat off and put my filmmaker hat on and sort of review them a little bit differently. So kind of give some technical aspects and just sort of other things that I watch it for. So you're not going to hear me talk a whole lot about inky blacks or bright whites or grain consistency, and did I notice grain flashing or this and that and the other, because I've already kind of explained why some of those things might be there. Now I might talk about them in that context, but not, a lot of these, and this is no shot at anyone, but a lot of the 4K review videos that I've seen, I hear a lot of what I call buzzwords. I hear inky blacks. I hear, high dynamic range. I hear color grade. I hear skin tones. I hear grain consistency and grain fluctuation. And I hear this like over and over and over again. And that's why I did the videos about why most 4K restorations are reviewed, incorrectly or wrong, or why most of them are wrong. And I kind of try to bring a filmmaker's perspective, like why grain is in there, why it fluctuates, that 4K restorations don't really add grain unless they're adding it digitally. Why would they do that? So there are other reasons. I tried to bring some of the reasons why, so maybe you can kind of get back to enjoying it instead of like pausing the screen and being like, why is that in the back there, in the bushes? Why is that pixelated or grainy or whatever? So when I do these reviews, I'll kind of let you know some things I'm looking for. So you're not going to see a bunch of like image comparisons. I'm not going to sit here and rip it off a DVD and a Blu-ray or take photos, and I'll explain why right now. I'll tell you, because there are so many factors that could change how I'm viewing it and how you're viewing it, and definitely how you are viewing it on YouTube. So I could go in here and rip a native 4K image off of a 4K disc, and then I could rip a Blu-ray or DVD image off and show you side by side. But that's when everything is going to break down, because there are a million factors now. There is the YouTube compression, first and foremost, because that's going to compress it down to like 2140. So that's already going to compress it back down. It's going to compress the image down, but it's not going to compress that Blu-ray image down, because the Blu-ray image is only at 1080p. So you're already hurting the 4K image, and you're not doing anything to the Blu-ray image. So if any one of them is going to get compressed, it's going to be the 4K image. So I'm not going to do that. That's the first step. The next step is, What monitor are you watching it on? Are you watching it on your phone? Are you watching it on your computer monitor? If so, is your computer monitor a 4K with high dynamic range? Are you watching it on your TV? Does your TV have high dynamic range? Does your TV have Dolby Vision? Can your TV, all these things? What is your internet speed like? Is it compressing it further to get it to you? Are your cables fast enough? Like, I had a good cable, a 4K cable on my TV in my living room. I replaced it with one that can handle up to 8K speeds, and I could tell a difference from the cable, right? So there are a lot of different things. Now, what I might show you are pictures sometimes of things that I'm specifically looking for, or things that specifically caught my eye. And I have one single solitary picture from Red Dawn that told me all I needed to know about how good the 4K restoration was. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. One thing I want to get to right off the bat is I brought up the color grade. I was worried about films like this. This is John Milius directed. John Milius he's a hardcore military type, far right badass, dude. He's tough. He had a vision for this, right? And being someone who is not just a filmmaker or writer, but I edit films and I color them, that's where my worry came in. Because having seen this film so many times since I was a kid when it came out, there was a feel and a tone that was being gone for in this film. And that's what I was worried about with some of the 4K restorations. For this one, I didn't need to be worried. Turns out I did not need to be worried. So if you ever saw Red Dawn at the theater, or you ever saw it, growing up on VHS or TV or DVD, it had a feel to it. It was very cold, gray, washed out, kind of, it was supposed to reflect the hopelessness that they felt, being invaded, having their homes taken away, our way of life taken away. Their parents were killed, their friends were killed, everything gone in an instant. And the cold, white, bleak wintertime and the washed out gray color, all that stuff was supposed to reflect the absence of hope. That's what it felt like that John Milius was conveying, that the editing was conveying. It was reflecting that feeling, right? So my worry was, if you go back and recolor grade and the colors are all popping and vibrant and warm and everything, does it completely change the tone and the feeling of that movie? Because nothing really can, short of adding scenes or cutting out scenes, nothing can change the way a film feels faster. A scene feels faster than the color. And color theory and color time is used to manipulate how you feel all the time, right? I think I used the example of TV show that I loved, Smallville. Well, in Smallville, you've got Superman, great, I want to say human, but he's not a human, but he's a great pure soul, right? And he's from a small town, and it has all that is right with the world in Americana. It's a small farm town. He lives in a farmhouse. He's got the bright red and blue and yellow, all that kind of stuff. He wears all these primary colors, right, on purpose because they're powerful and they make us feel a certain way. But whenever they're in Smallville on the show, everything is colored that way. Everything is bright and vibrant and alive and warm and comfortable, and it feels right, and it's supposed to make you feel good and comfortable. Contrast that with whenever they go to Metropolis or to Luthor Corp, everything is gray, blue, cold, washed out, without that warmth, without that comfort. It's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable and uneasy and detached and all of these things. You're supposed to feel like the absence of warmth, the absence of happiness. It's all the color is drawn out of it. It's bled out. That is what Red Dawn's initial release was supposed to do, because that's how they felt. And so I was afraid with a new color grade, making colors pop and everything, it might lose that. I'm happy to say that it did not lose that. So at least in this instance, I had nothing to worry about. What it did do was it enhanced what was there. Whoever did the color, and I have no idea who did the color, because I want to clear something else up here. A 4K restoration and a new color grade are not the same thing, right? Those are two separate things. When they do a 4K restoration, it doesn't automatically make the color grade different. They have to, there's a reason it says and new color grade, because they're going to change the color, right? So that's not, whenever they do a quote unquote new color grade, it is not the same movie anymore. It has been at least changed, and color is very subjective. I know, unless you're working with the original filmmaker and they're giving you a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. If you've got a colorist in there, and usually a lot of times it is one colorist that does the main color, right? Then you'll have others that might come back and do things, but one colorist with one vision, and that can get hairy because it is very subjective. I know that, like, when I've been coloring films, and when I've been hired to color other people's, you can fall in love when you start out. You have a plan of how you want it to look, and you start doing scenes and it looks great. And then you get to this other scene and maybe it doesn't track as well for whatever. And you just tweak one or two things and it gives you a whole other look. And you're like, oh shit, that looks pretty good. Should I go back and do everything that way? That might be better overall. That might change the tone, might change the feel of this other scene. And you have to fight against that as a colorist and an editor, especially if you're just left alone to say, make it look good, right? So you have to take that into consideration, that it's subjective. And so the colorists, the people doing the new color grade, they got a hell of a lot of power to ultimately change how that 4K comes out. A hell of a lot of power. So I was afraid that somebody was going to come back and say, oh, well, it looks so old and not modern, so we're going to make it look modern. We're going to, pop it up and everything else and change it completely. They didn't. They did it the right way. They enhanced what was there. They made what was there come into focus better somewhat, without losing the feel. And that's what you want. I think I've also talked about, and I know Brian over at The Last Movie Standing, he talked about it too, and a couple of others have talked about Crybaby on 4K. And the colors, the Kino Lorber release, there's a new color grade on it, and the colors are much richer and warmer. The skin tones of everybody in the movie are richer and more red. That is still, and it looks good. I think that is an amazing 4K. It looks good, but it's still subjective. There was technically nothing wrong with the other color grade. They could have left it. They could have just increased the resolution, right? Just brought it up on 4K and left the color how it was. And they'd had better resolution, same color. But when you change the color to a new grade, it kind of helps it kind of helps make the layperson see the difference that they're paying for between the old and the new, because the color is the easiest thing to see. The problem there, and the other reason why I'm not going to do a bunch of side-by-side pictures with my reviews, is you could change that shit with one click on most of your remotes for your TV. There are simple settings on your TV that change it to a warmer tone, a cooler tone, a neutral tone, a cinematic tone. And that's before you get into the quote unquote advanced or expert settings where you can tweak things. So let's say that, for instance, we'll use Crybaby. They changed it to a warmer, richer tone with the new color grade, but you have your TV set to cool. The setting is the cool picture setting. It's not going to look the same. And you may miss a lot of that new color treatment because you've got your TV set a certain way. Or maybe your TV is shitty and it can't show the color to start with. So there is a lot of things, but simple things that can be done with one click that can erase all that. So it's more important to focus on the 4K restoration and the resolution being increased. And there's one moment in this film towards the end. Now there's a lot of moments, but there's one that stuck out to me, and it's so simple. It is so simple. It's at the end when Jed and Matt have made their last stand, and Jed's been shot, and Matty is pretty much dead, and Jed's carrying him, and it's dark night, right? It is like super dark. There's snow on the ground. There's not a lot of light. Before the first time ever watching this movie, as they're walking through the darkness, and it's got a kind of medium tight shot on Jed, on Patrick Swayze carrying Charlie Sheen. You can see flakes of real snow coming down. I'm assuming it's real because of where they filmed. Maybe it was fake, but if so, you've never been able to see it before. But I was able to capture it in pictures right here. You can see it because of this new 4K resolution and the clarity. You can see tiny snowflakes falling in the darkness because just a tiny bit of light are hitting them. That's all I needed to see to tell me how much resolution was brought up with this 4K. The increase in that's the kind of things that I look for. I hear inky blacks and all that kind of stuff again and again and again. Again, a lot of that can be affected with your equipment, with what you're watching it with your settings, all those kind of things. It could have been affected, like I went into with my other video, with the camera they shot with how they lit the scene, with the lenses they used. Just stylistic preferences. So many things can affect stuff. When you start to lose detail in the background, in the blacks, because the camera sensor, somebody's like, what do you mean it's losing information? Well, anything the camera sees is information that it's bringing in, right? And the more light it has, the more information it can see, the more visual things it can see, convert to information and bring them through its sensor and put on film or whatever else. When it's dark in an area, it has nothing to see. So it's looking for light, and it can cause more distortion, more like banding, more grain or whatever. There was another, I think, brother, if I say your channel wrong, I'm just riffing off the top of my head. I think it's undergraduated undergraduated media. Shit, man, if I say it wrong, I'm gonna look it up. Give me a second. Well, I had it right. Ungraduated media. He had some great things to say on some of my other videos, and I know that his setup, because I've seen his description, I know his setup is baller, so he can see the shit how it needs to be seen. And he got some titles in. I think it might have been from Severin or Synapse. I can't remember for sure. And I was watching his video, because I watch everybody's videos, man. This is what I do when I'm not doing this, and I'm not editing or getting ready to try to make another movie or taking care of my kids. I'm watching this stuff. I love it. I was watching his video, and he was talking about being confused because he was watching, I forget the films, some old 4K restoration or some 4K restorations. And for some reason in the films, and he had some good pictures that he pulled. Like I said, I know his stuff is good. And my stuff is good. So I had a legit shot at seeing it. In in the bright parts of the film, you saw more grain than in the dark parts, which on the surface combats everything I've told you guys and doesn't really make sense, right? Except for it kind of does if you factor in maybe the amount of money they had to film and the film they used and the knowledge of the person doing the filming. And what I mean is there's a good chance if you're watching a film, especially if it's older and it's low budget, that they use the same camera film all the way through. You say, well, that's pretty common. Yeah, it might be common. But if they were using cheap film or they didn't know how to change from inside or nighttime to outside. So what I mean here is most likely what happened, if it's not the film's fault, if they weren't using like a nighttime film outside at day, which is totally possible that they did, that can cause all kinds of problems. The other thing that probably happened is they just simply overexposed outside because a lot of the grain he was seeing was in the blues and the very bright sky and stuff, but not in the darks at night, which makes, honestly, if you think about everything I've said, is kind of the opposite and doesn't make sense. But it does if they use the wrong film or if they overexposed. So if you overexpose that film outside in the daylight, all those little silver, all those little acetate, the little pieces in the film that can cause grain, they basically get overexposed to the light, and it's kind of like shining a bright ass flashlight on all of the grain. And then, brother, you can watch that grain sparkle and dance like it's glitter in the sky because it's overexposed to so much light. It's almost shimmering, right? It's almost shining back and forth because it's overexposed to light. So that would be what I guess happened there. That can happen in any budget film, but usually lower budget when they shot on film. But that can be sometimes on some of these restorations that we see where somebody's like, oh, the grain's flashing. Well, that's another reason that it could be. There could be a part of that picture that's overexposed or to a harsh light or underexposed, and it can cause the grain. So I'm not going to get into a lot of grain fluctuations in this 4K and inky blacks and high dynamic range and stuff like that because there's too many variables. If you want to hear me discuss those variables, maybe I can go into more specifics into details. You guys let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to specifically know. But otherwise, you can check out my other videos on that and kind of get an explanation on all that stuff. Another thing with this video was the absence of the 7.1 channel Dolby Atmos mix. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't have a 7.1 channel setup in my house anywhere. I got disc fall now. I got two 5.1 channel. Now, in my living room, I am going to break down because it's a huge room with a huge, like 20-foot tall ceiling. So Dolby Atmos could sound great in there. Get those up-firing speakers and everything. It could be great. Now, in here where I edit, the room is long, but it's narrow. So if you put 7 speakers in here, you'd go deaf. Or, if you are 8 speaker. If you put the 7.1, you'd go deaf in here. But I'll let you in on a little secret. So I don't know if this was, because I just got this recently, so I don't know if that part of it was fixed or not. It does still plainly say, I don't know if you can see that on here. It still does plainly say that it exists on here. I don't know. I didn't check it. I wasn't looking for that. And I'll tell you part of the reason why I don't really look for 7.1. Now, I'll look for it more when I get the other speakers, because hell, I want to try it. I like all the new gadgets. 7.1 isn't really real. In a way, it's not real. So like the first actual 7.1 like discrete like soundtrack like theatrical mix, I think was not until 2010, and I think it was on like Toy Story 2 or 3. I think it was Toy Story 3. I think that's like the first credited actual in theater 7.1 mix. Everything else that you hear that has been restored before that, there was no 7.1 that I'm aware of in any way, shape, or form. You can go back and look, maybe tell me I'm wrong, but I am pretty sure that's accurate. I've mixed some audio in my life for movies. From what I know, 7.1 actually isn't. It can sound freaking cool, right? And all that stuff and sound a whole lot of fun. But it's like everything is kind of artificially remixed into 7.1. And what they do is they split sounds apart. So like what used to be on two different audio tracks and sort of mixed together for left and right and surround, you're now taking individual pieces of those sound effects and splitting them off to other speakers. So it can, like, you can maybe hear some of those sound effects better, but it can kind of sound unnatural if it's not done correctly, and just unnatural in general because that's not the way it was recorded, and it's sort of not the way we hear. So sometimes it could make it difficult to know where the sound, when you're watching, to orientate where the sound is coming from in a given scene. So like, I mean, most likely probably not, but it can because it's not naturally recorded that way. But now they do mix theatrical mixes in 7.1. But all this where they're going back and restoring these films, anything that's in like an Atmos or 7.1, they're having to go back and pick apart audio and do that. And I'm not an audio, like audio guy is not like, I'm a video and colorist and everything else. Audios, I have to do audio. As a matter of fact, like I have won awards for scoring. I have won awards for like scoring films. Like this was at a major film festival. This is Idlewild in California. And I have won a bunch of awards for scoring. But that's different than like audio mix. I don't like to do audio mix. But that is, so like I don't pay as much attention to that. I'm sure when I get my Atmos speakers, I'll listen for that more. But I focus on the 4K, the visual restoration, because what's the truth is a lot of people are going to have like a sound bar. The majority of people are going to have a sound bar, maybe a center channel and a right and left. And that's it for the majority of people. So we don't want to like gatekeep and make it like where you have to have all of this super expensive stuff in order to enjoy and love physical media and be able to see if a 4K is good or not. All right. So some of that stuff is the kind of things you won't hear from me on my channel or see. Some things you will. I really enjoyed Red Dawn. I can't wait to do more of these. If you guys enjoy it, let me know in the comments if you like kind of this different take on breaking down 4Ks. I know this has been out for a while now. If you haven't got it, I would get it, man. I would get it because this is the best it's ever looked and probably the best it's ever going to look right here. It has my thumbs up 100% on it, and I'm very happy about that because I really love that film and I love all the restoration work that's going on these days. And I'll look at more and more and more and see what's done right, and I'll call out shit if I think if they did something to it. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think. And until next time, this is Chase with AV Pop Culture saying be kind, rewind like always. Click that like and subscribe button and join the pop culture friends and family or become a pop culture icon. Join the channel. We have a hell of a lot of fun. You get some cool stuff along the way, and just hang out with me because we got a long way to go, my brothers and sisters out there. All right, I will talk to you later. See you again real soon. Bye-bye.
I know.